Vertigo Nation, welcome to a special episode of Vertigo. What's special about it? Well, that you're getting 2 episodes in 1 week. Cue the music. Hey everybody, this is your host Sean. Welcome back to another episode of Vertigo. And as I said in my intro, you're getting an extra drop this week. So we're getting a twofer. And the reason for that is I got extremely excited. I had kind of a breakthrough, I guess. Being that all right, let me start over because I'm stuttering like a motherfucker. Okay. So, being that this show talks a lot about mental health and specifically about men's mental health. And, I've had this kind of breakthrough for myself. And I thought in true Vertigo fashion that talking about it and kind of talking through it and wrestling with it, in a way that really is therapy for me, because it's like I'm accepting it, and then I'm releasing it. And so Vertigo has become that, right? I find out something, I either accept it or debate it, and then, through my conversation on Vertigo, I get to release it. And then, hopefully those who are listening in and joining me are either able to gain something from that, or, just, I don't know, listen to me banter about bullshit. I don't know. Yeah, so I don't want to get too serious, but it is serious. So here's the breakthrough. All right. So first of all, many moons ago, I had gone to Onondaga Community College, and I was taking humanities with a concentration in human services, because as I discussed on prior episodes, that I had at one time worked for OCO when I was fresh out of high school, and they are a human service agency in Oswego County. And being that was my first real job outside of like stocking shelves in a grocery store, and being that my personality is one of immediate loyalty, I became unhealthily loyal to OCO. And the reason I say unhealthy is because I'm beginning to realize that as a people pleaser, as somebody who has, these extreme feelings of guilt and shame and not wanting to let people down, I allow myself to kind of stay in these roles, even if I really don't see myself there. For example, I have found machining, right? And I love being a CNC operator, and that's what I do right now. And I love it. I feel like a kid. I haven't had this kind of experience, at least in a very long time, of like this self-discovery. And ironically, the career change is what's almost kick-started me on this journey of really discovering the self, right? And really like trying to figure out who Sean is and what makes Sean tick, because I feel like I have lost that. Or maybe I didn't lose it, but maybe I never even came to terms or recognized it. And so that's where I'm at, right? And anyway, the reason I'm bringing up this whole thing from, I would have been at OCC 21 years ago, probably. No, that would have only been in my 30s. So 28 years ago, something like that. Like, who's doing the math? Like, who cares, right? So anyway, my point being that when I was taking that class, I think I mentioned this. So there's a couple things that I need to mention. One, I am a child of an alcoholic. So I grew up in a household with a parent who is an alcoholic. And so if you know anything about that, there are family roles and rules that take place. And that's where OCC comes into place. I never did any like Al-Anon work or anything like that. Ironically, I worked in addiction for a little while. I was working on my CASAC and was an addictions counselor. More like, because I was CASAC training, I had a small caseload. Most of my cases were trying to help get people into actual inpatient and doing that work. So full disclosure, but it, and it's funny because when you do that work, you're also working on yourself. I really believe that's why a lot of people fall into these roles. I think that people become social workers or counselors because it's their way of fixing themselves first. And I think a good therapist, a good counselor, you know, that's why they're in it, because they're looking internally first, and then through that they want to then help externally, right, in their role. And hopefully they've been able to get through what they needed to get through and did that work and blah blah blah. So before I digress down the ADHD like over explanation rabbit hole, all of a sudden this hit me like a ton of bricks last night in the middle of the night, and I woke up and jumped on my computer and started doing some research. And so what had happened was, so I went to OCC. Let's finish one story at a time. And the very, very first class, literally my first class, first semester, I'm in my human services class. I can't remember what it was, but I'm in there. And I remember the professor, teacher, adjunct, whatever, he was, talking about, and we did a model of the family roles within families of substance abuse and alcoholism. And I remember it hitting me kind of then, but not the way that it hit me last night. I think over the years I've explained my role incorrectly. I've said I was the black sheep, or I said I was, this or that, whatever. I'm not, and I'll talk a little bit about what has happened in a minute. But the importance is being in that class. All of a sudden, I've never forgotten that class. I've never forgotten the dialogue. I was part of the model. I got chosen to come up in front of the class and be part of the model. And the model was, there was the alcoholic at the center, and then the family around them, and they were doing different things like pointing, distracting, whatever, and it all signified the different roles. But the substance abuser, the alcoholic, was at the center of it, right? Excuse me. And that was the important part of that, of the experiment. And I've never forgotten it. Never have I forgotten it. All these years later, I did not graduate from OCC at that time. As a matter of fact, I left OCC and did not complete my degree, and never would I actually finish my degree in humanities or human services, which is ironic because I even went back to Jefferson Community College decades later, like in the pretty recent future, in the recent past, recent future. I'm seeing myself back in Jefferson Community College, like I'm having an out-of-body experience. Somebody call somebody. No. Whatever. So I even went back to Jefferson Community College to finish the degree and didn't finish it. So it really was obviously something that it wasn't in my, it wasn't a goal. But obviously I felt like I needed something from it, and so I went back. So here we are, fast forwarding now. I'm sitting there, and I did the episode 2 episodes ago about shame and guilt. And then I did the episode that I dropped on July 4th, which was, what were we talking about then? Because we did the whole episode of talking about Klondike bars and codependency. And then, denying the inevitable and intuition is what we talked about. Is what we talked about. And so from that, I guess, I don't know. I listened back to the episode, and last night I'm laying in bed, and all of a sudden I sat up, and I started to realize that my dysfunction comes from a place of perpetual self-neglect. All right? Like, I prioritize family or others' needs over my own, and therefore I sacrifice personal health, boundaries, even happiness to an extent, because I want to ensure that everybody else is having a good time, that everybody else is, that is okay, right? And And what that does is then that creates this resentment and victim mentality. And all of a sudden, I realized that those are the two things that I really need to be A, aware of, but B, start breaking and start really like doing, because I have figured that I am always taking care of everybody else. I have fallen into this caretaker role. And then I realized that I start developing this resentment because no one recognizes all of the energy that I'm putting in. And so I'm looking for this validation or recognition, and I'm not getting it. And then I get this cycle of guilt, even some passive aggressiveness in there for sure, and definitely some hidden resentment because I start getting mad at the other, people, and they might not even realize why. They might not even realize, like, geez, why are you getting so, what's the attitude? What's this bullshit about, And it's because there's this hidden resentment, which all really falls on my lap for not being open. And it has nothing to do with honesty, I don't think, in my opinion, because it's not coming from a place of dishonesty. It's not misleading, not purposefully at least. It's just about being, making sure that everybody's okay. I really don't know how else to put it. I don't know really where that even comes from, but it's the constant checking in, making sure, that everybody is, everybody is okay. And then from that though, there again, the development, the resentments and the mentality of like feeling like a victim, which isn't healthy at all. And so ironically, it comes into kind of being a martyr, which is a word that I'm like, oh man, that's not one word that I'd really like to describe myself as, a martyr, but I want to talk about the definition. The family martyr is a dysfunctional dynamic where one member selflessly sacrifices their own needs to care for others, often expecting validation or recognition and not getting it, right? And that behavior then creates a cycle of guilt, passive aggression, hidden resentment, and even a little bit, I think, of using that using it as leverage, emotional leverage. I think a little bit sometimes it's unhealthy. You know what I mean? Because you then begin to kind of expect, like, well, I'm doing this for you. What are you going to do for me, right? And it almost becomes like a power play, and that's not healthy. None of that is healthy, and I'm admitting that, right? This is me admitting that nothing about any of that is healthy. Now, ironically, I was at accidentally too, coincidentally, it wasn't even on purpose. I didn't buy tickets, but I was at an event for what do they call it? Oh my gosh, it just a medium. All right. Holy cow. Hi, Vertigo Nation. You're listening to Vertigo, the podcast that will make your head spin. Deep breath. Welcome back. Okay. I'm just on a rant, I guess, because this is hitting me like a ton of bricks, and I wanted to get this out there, I think. I don't know why I'm feeling so passionate about this right now. But I'm feeling like this is so important to get out. Like I need to unburden this. And I think I'm also hoping that maybe this helps other people because, like I said, I really woke up like a shot in the middle of the night thinking about this because I somehow end up finding myself in these roles where I'm constantly trying to be the problem solver, offering people some type of lifeline. And then at the same time, internally, not outwardly at all, but internally, wrestling with the fact of like, I am so sick of feeling like I am the problem solver, and why can't people do that for themselves? And then I feel this guilt and shame for thinking that way. And so it creates this whole cycle within myself where I'm constantly beating myself up, constantly not feeling good enough, and that takes a hit on your self-esteem. When really what I need to start doing is saying the word no, and understanding that I don't have to take on every burden, but for some reason there's something broken within me that feels like I do. Like I do have to take these burdens on. Like because of my self-worth and my self-esteem isn't good enough to just know that I'm a good person. I have to prove it, right? Let me show you that I'm such a good person, to this extreme that I take on all of these things without the need to, and sometimes it's just not necessary, you know. People have to learn and grow. Like for example, I remember there are times and situations in my life where I wish somebody would have thrown me a lifeline, and I was resentful because I didn't get it. But looking back on it, I needed that experience because it helped me grow. It helped me become the person that I am. And if I take those experiences away from somebody else, how are they then going to learn and grow? You know, because instead what I'm doing is doing it for them. I've done that for my kids. Here, let me help you. Let me do that for you. And not out of a frustration of let me do it because I can get it done quicker. It's the fact of like, I don't want to see somebody struggling. I don't want to see, and it's like sometimes we need to struggle. That's just the truth, right? And so that resentment, that hidden resentment is mine to own. It's not the other person's. It's mine to own. I have to own that resentment because I'm the one that's putting it there. I'm the one that's causing it. You know, you can't help somebody and then turn around and get mad at them because you gave them all of this help, you know? And so what really needs to happen is I need to say, hey, no, without providing an excuse or feeling guilty, right? I need to learn to build some self-worth outside of caretaking because I don't have to be that, right? And allow other people to step in and problem solve, you know? Allow other people to jump in and do that. You know, it doesn't have to fall on me to be the sole whatever. So yeah, so I just wanted to, kind of talk about that because I feel like this is the huge thing that I have been struggling with and haven't been able to really break free from. You know, I talk about feeling this shame and guilt, and that is real, but without really knowing where it comes from. I mean, sure, you can do the work and say, okay, I need to stop feeling this way, but why am I feeling this way? You know, well, I'm feeling this way because I'm constantly putting myself into positions where I am emotionally empty, you know, and ironically, I want to be that guy that's emotionally full. And ironically, I want to be the guy who has something to offer. But you can't be that guy when you're running yourself dry. And so it's really hard because people like me, we don't really know how to say no. You know, and then we feel guilty if we do say no. And then we want to recant if we say no. Well, I said no, but I really should have said yes because it looks like I disappointed you. Listen, disappointment is part of life, man. You know, how many times have you been disappointed in your life? I know I've been disappointed plenty of times in my life, and that's just the way life is. You know, there's nothing really, really wrong with that. It's just is what it is. And so I feel like, we need to be able to break free from that. I need to be able to break free from that, right? And if I really want to end the shame and guilt that I talked about in prior episodes, then there really needs to be this breakthrough of, okay, I need to learn how to say no. No is a healthy answer. I don't have to have, I don't need to even make excuses. Like, it's just no. It's no because I need to do some self-care. It's no because I need a minute to reset, and I don't have to rescue everybody from every situation. So I'm hoping that maybe by me having this, wake up, that maybe somebody else can hear that and go, oh my gosh, like that's me too. Because like I said, resentment too, like that's one of the things that I've always hated. I've always lived with this resentment, right? And that's ruins relationships because then that, friends, family members, whatever, you start to see them differently, you start to treat them differently because you resent them, but it's not really their fault, because I allowed myself into that situation. And if I had just said no, or, I don't know, I'm still wrestling with it. So, maybe it's premature to commit this to, a recording, but it's fresh. and I didn't want to wait a week, and maybe, yeah, I didn't want to wait a week. I wanted to put it out now. That's just what it is. I wanted to put it out now, and so here I am. And yeah, so hopefully that helps. So again, I'm just going to read this real quick. So anyway, I got up and in the middle of the night, and I was like, so what is it about me being this extreme caretaker, And then it led to all these other things. So just by doing a Google search saying, why am I an extreme caretaker? And it's like, you're not an extreme caretaker per se. You most likely are the family martyr, right? And it's like, wow, I didn't really think about that, and so these are roles in dysfunctional families, and I think that's important because everything kind of comes back to, and listen, all of us have had some type of struggle, I think as kids. There's no perfect childhood. And so, anyway, common family roles. So I want to kind of go through these because, like I said, I've had this awakening. And especially, like I said, I was talking about this in that class many, many years, like literally 30 years ago. Actually, yeah, 31 years ago. So common family roles. And I remember these. There's the golden child or the hero or the saint, right? That's the favorite. The one who can do no wrong. The perfect child, they kind of take on that role of just, being the hero, they're the one that can do no wrong, right? And then there's the troublemaker or the scapegoat or the black sheep, which I've identified at times. So they're the complete opposite, right, to the hero. So you've got the hero, so it's definitely an antagonist protagonist type of thing where you've got one who's the hero, can do no wrong, and one who seems to be always in trouble. And they're always acting out, and they're always disobedient, right? So then there's the lost child, and the lost child is just that. They're lost in the commotion of it all, right? The chaos of it all. Chaos is the word I was looking for, They're lost because they're kind of just pushed to the side. They're quiet, right? So then, like I said, there's the caretaker, enabler, and then, of course, the martyr, right? Taking the doer role a step further. The martyr makes sure everyone knows how much he or she is sacrificing for the family. This role often involves guilt-tripping others, sarcastic comments that leave family members feeling as though they owe the martyr something. That's not how... I don't like that definition of it as much. Let's see. I think more the caretaker enabler is more in this definition from this one. Caretaker is someone who takes responsibilities and tries to save them. That's more what I'm talking about. The caretaker enabler in this definition, in this context. The caretaker is someone who takes the responsibilities of others in the family, tries to save them from the consequences they might face, right? A helicopter parent can be a perfect example of this in our new age ways of saying things. We want to protect everybody, and we want to help everybody. We want to make sure everybody's okay. And but I think with the martyr, though, and where this is important, and where I do agree with the martyr, is the martyr then also feels resentment. Like, hey, I've been doing all of this, and I get no accolades for that. I get no, because it all goes to the hero child. So what the fuck, right? And so the hero gets all the accolades, but I'm over here because what we really want is to be in the good graces. We're trying to emulate or be the hero. And even though that role is already taken. So that's my psychology to it, at least anyway. The psychology of Sean. You're welcome. There's no fee. You just got to listen to the episode and hit subscribe. Anyway. I just wanted to kind of talk about that. So I hope everybody has been able to enjoy the 4th of July holiday. I hope that everybody's getting out there, having some barbecues, enjoying some fireworks and family time. And as always, I appreciate everybody who has tuned in. This is just a brief episode, like I said, bonus episode. But I just wanted to flesh that out and kind of talk a little bit about it. And hopefully somebody else, like, hears this and goes, oh, I want to look into that myself. I want to look into that. And so maybe that will help you as well. So just a quick episode. Again, I hope everybody is doing all right. Hang in there. And remember, we are all in this together, Vertigo Nation. So thank you for listening. And I hope this episode made your head spin.